All right. Welcome to Vintage SF Live. Today, we're going to be talking about a book that we just finished in a buddy read called Mockingbird by Walter Tevis from 1980. But first, I want to introduce the people who I commonly get together online with to buddy read. We've got Sam of Sam Not So Wise, Whitney of Secret Sauce of Storycraft, and Bart of Bart's Book Space. Welcome all.
Thank you, Richard.
During our buddy read, we had an interesting question from Whitney. It came up, I believe, in her conversation with some other people who are online. Whitney, would you like to introduce that question? And it was on the thumbnail for this video too.
Yeah. So there is a massive debate that should be more obvious, the answer, however, is not when you really get into it. And that is, what is the difference between a dystopian and a post-apocalyptic? Because like on surface level, it's very easy to just name a few examples and say it's very easy. But when you actually try to come up with a definition, that's when it gets tricky.
And sometimes they can be both.
Absolutely.
But yeah. So I'm interested, to hear what people say.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to give it a go?
I actually made a video about this. It was like my 5th video or something, so it's not that I think I've improved at all, but it's probably awful. But it's a complicated subject. It's some of them are obvious, right? Some of them are pretty obvious, but then some of them kind of blur the line because, as you said, Richard, they are both. But I guess it's hard. We've not even started, and I'm kind of struggling. For me, post-apocalyptic, it's in the name, right? There has to have been an apocalypse. Otherwise, it's not apocalyptic. So that one for me is at least clearer. But where dystopian is harder, because you can have a dystopian world that is post-apocalyptic, or you can have one that leads to the other, right? So a post-apocalyptic world can lead to a dystopian, or vice versa, a dystopian can lead to a post-apocalyptic. So I think the dystopian one is the harder one to define. I'd like to hear if there are examples of post-apocalyptic books where an apocalypse hasn't happened.
So I have, if I can jump in with a super easy and quick way to, I think, to distinguish them. One is in the apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic, as they will often be called. It's men versus the environment post an apocalypse. Whereas in dystopian novels, we're talking about men versus society, typically some sort of oppressive, highly structured society that controls its citizens. So it's men versus environment, post-apocalypse, or men versus society.
Yeah. When this question was posed in a different discussion area, it was because of the book that we are discussing today. And the person told me that they thought that this book was post-apocalyptic, and because they hated dystopian literature. And I was like, no, that's not how that works. But they tried to define it by saying a dystopian focuses on government, whereas a post-apocalyptic does not. But I don't think it's quite that simple. I like that you said society instead of government, Bart. Because I think one of the more intuitive one is to try to come up with examples and see if they fit the definition. So using some of the books that you have behind you, for example, so I see The Road there. We didn't have an apocalypse. We don't know what ruins the world. Well, we don't know it. There's no fallout. There's no nuclear or anything. It's not discussed. We just know that the society is in shambles and we don't know why. So some people might argue that this is a dystopian rather than a post-apocalyptic. I'm serious. This is like,
just
there are people
the author
arguing that.
Cormac McCarthy doesn't talk about what happened in the past. The father and the son, they don't discuss what had happened. They know. It's for us to imagine. I don't think I don't think it would add much for him to just throw in there, oh, there was a nuclear disaster. But it seems like that the ash, the cold that permeates, they're going south, trying to stay warm, survive. So I think it's clear that there was some sort of apocalyptic event that caused this, as opposed to a societal collapse, like in a typical dystopia, even though Cormac McCarthy doesn't specify what it could have been. But I think it's heavily hinted that something had happened.
Oh, it's definitely heavily hinted, but the argument is that they don't say it. The same is true about Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, because the society is crumbling, no question. But is it apocalypse or is it dystopian? It's never answered.
I would call it dystopian. There has been no apocalypse. Like the problem with the world is that it's almost like an apocalypse going on, like a slow ongoing apocalypse, rather than a post-apocalyptic. But the focus is more on the kind of the control in the government and the collapse of society rather than the environment. And the environment is an important part, but they can still kind of grow stuff. They can still feed themselves. It's just that everything is messed up.
Well, there's a book called 1 Second After that I think Richard said he has read as well, where an EMP is dropped somewhere over the United States. And it's very clearly a post-apocalyptic book because they dropped this EMP. And yet they can feed themselves. So does that mean that's not post-apocalyptic?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends. Like, I don't know the science and how it works, but if one bomb is dropped, does that mean the whole world is screwed? Because
they can't use electricity is essentially what happens, and then society declines from there. Okay,
but like, for example, would you say that Japan lives in a post-apocalyptic world because they've had bombs dropped on them? But I think the whole point is that there's like mass destruction, that there's like most of the population are dead and people are surviving on the crumbs, what's left, rather than, I don't necessarily think you could say that if one bomb was dropped, then that's an apocalypse. It may be apocalyptic for the city.
It's not the bomb. It's that now nobody can use electricity. So all of a sudden the government falls apart and everyone else falls apart. At least that's what happens in the book, is what I'm saying with that particular example.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily call it an apocalypse. I'd call it kind of a...
Well, it's not dystopian, you know? You see what I'm saying? This gets tricky. It's tricky.
But I don't think you can say that if one isn't one, then it must be the other. Do you know what I mean?
I did that, but then what's the in between?
So I think there's guys, there are clear-cut examples of each one, and then there are books that maybe kind of merge the two or blur the lines. And I think Mockingbird, which is the book we're going to talk about, Richard, is one that in some ways borrows from a lot of different books and merges them maybe in a very satisfying way, very readable way. We all, I think we can do a little spoiler. We all more or less but enjoyed this book, and it's a good one to talk about this topic because it does, merge some things. And you could almost say that the society in Mockingbird is going through an apocalyptic event as they're dying out, but there was no apocalypse.
There was some sort of nuclear event.
I mean, we're risking going into spoilers. Because there's something I would say to argue one point against the other, but that is a spoiler.
One thing I'd like to say is that when we use the word society, apocalyptic novels, post-apocalyptic, is often about attempting to rebuild society or to regain society. When it comes to the dystopia type of novel, it usually is some entity of some sort, person, government, is exerting control on a society which has warped that society, that usually you're trying to find a way of removing that control or finding a better solution. So I think one is a rebuilding of society and the other one is trying to break down a control on society.
Except The Road doesn't rebuild society. It's just about survival. I think a lot of post-apocalypse is just about frank survival at that point, not even society at all.
Yeah. I was thinking about I don't know if any of you have read Last Babylon. That's a post-apocalyptic. The bombs drop, and a small community in Florida attempts to survive and come together to survive. So it's straight survival, but it's coming together as a community. That's one that they used to teach in schools that I don't think a lot of people know anymore. Pat Frank is the author of that one.
I've never
Then
even
how
heard of
about
it.
post-apocalyptic can be also disease, right? Pandemic type of idea
Oh,
too.
Yeah, The Stand is a perfect example.
Yep.
Or what else was it?
But this is more of a fantasy, I think. Wouldn't you agree that The Stand is more of a fantasy than it is science fiction?
Yeah, but I don't think it has to stay in science fiction.
So is this
Yeah.
post-apocalyptic?
Oh, I've not read it.
I think so. Yes.
I think so too. I mean, first chapter I think is the apocalypse.
You read the first line of that one. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Station 11, that's another kind of pandemic
I had that one here too.
apocalypse.
It's
No,
And
this was
some
great.
people-
I thought.
yeah. I've heard some people actually respond that this is also dystopia, and I'm not sure. To me, I lean towards post-apocalyptic for this one.
I don't see it.
I don't.
Yeah.
I would say it's post-apocalyptic and it's optimistic even, and dystopia is typically dark themed to me. And this has some there's survival in it, but people are coping and they're bringing back arts, which kind of my art changes everything. My sweater, I'm gonna show it off.
Yeah.
So art is important, and it's gonna be a theme also, I think, in Mockingbird. So Station 11 is, I don't think that's a dystopia.
But this one definitely would be in that category, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's because control is being exerted.
Well, so just so you know, Sam, and for everyone else too, I like arguing this question, like even from a devil's advocate perspective, like in general, because I think that makes for a better discussion and b
Absolutely.
like a tighter definition. But I do think that you guys all kind of touched on, and I don't have a perfect definition either to present to you guys today, but I do think that it's interesting that you said, Bart, it's about, dystopians is about like lacking of freedom. It's about control sometimes, but it's also about the things that have been taken away as more of a negative perspective. Whereas post-apocalyptic, you could talk about some of the things that are taken away, but it's also more about that frank, just straight survival. Like what we know doesn't work anymore. And now we have to come to a term with it. I don't know. I feel like there's something in there that we can kind of use.
I think also the word agency can come into it as well.
Great.
Do you have agency into your society or don't you? Is it impossible to have agency in your society the way it's functioning?
Mm-hmm.
There's even
So I would
like dystopias where you could even say most of the society works, but there are like certain pockets of the society that live in a dystopian world because they are controlled in certain ways. So an example would be Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, or even Clara and the Sun. Even Cordwainer Smith's universe is like that as well in some ways. Yeah.
I
Just for
think
some more
I think if someone is wondering which category a book he or she is reading falls into, to me, and if you can attach more of these words to one and these words to the other, then you're in it. So if it's dystopian, if you talk about injustice, right? Maybe human rights, control of society, that's more dystopian. If you're talking about large population just disappearing for some reason, dying, whether it's like the Stand 99 point whatever percent of people just died due to a disease, or maybe a like an atomic bomb. So that's post-apocalyptic. Resources, lack of resources, lawlessness, humanity just falling apart the way we read in The Road, which was so striking. Harsh environment maybe, and that lack of resources. So those would be on the post-apocalyptic. And then there's, of course, a blend of the two, which is Mockingbird. Yeah,
I think that's where we're going.
I have
That
another
was a
blend.
good question to start. So does Andrea. Welcome with us, Andrea. So, any other thoughts about the similarities or differences between the two before we start talking about Mockingbird?
I like the books where one can turn into the other, right? So I think this Mockingbird is one of those. Another example is the Silo trilogy. I don't know if any of you read any of those, where there is an apocalypse, but what we read about is a dystopian society. I think also the Hunger Games falls into that category, because even though it's not the focus, there has been an apocalypse at some point, but we're focused on the dystopian society. And I don't know if anyone's read it apart from me in this group, but Cloud Atlas has an element of that.
I'm reading it next month.
I won't say how, but it's very interesting how it's done. So I kind of like those books that because I think that can happen. Or, I'm trying to think of examples where there's been an apocalypse and it turns into a dystopian. So maybe, for example, Oryx and Crake. I can't quite remember. It's been a long time since I read that. I think that's just pure post-apocalyptic, maybe.
Well, I think the interesting thing about this question, at least for me, and examining like how I try to answer the question, is I will have like a solid, like undefinable vibe for a book where I feel like, I feel like Mockingbird is for sure dystopian. I don't get post-apocalyptic vibes from it. Whereas, if you gave me Oryx and Crake, like that's post-apocalyptic all the way, not dystopian. And it might have like shown a little bit of like the terribleness of society, but I think some of that has to do with the main theme of the book. At least in terms of how it like lends me more towards one label or another. Not that labels really define this story, if you will, but messaging sure does. So go ahead.
Yeah, I would think that there, as Sam was saying, I think it's a apocalypse that leads to the dystopia in Mockingbird, and that we're looking at, I don't know, 20% apocalypse and 80% dystopia on that book.
Yeah, I think for me, again, without going into spoilers, but for me, I think it depends where you're reading the story and the timeline, because there's definitely a dystopian society, right? But I think at the point that we're at in the book, even that society doesn't even exist anymore. It's kind of just anarchy in a way, or complete randomness. Nobody's in control. And there has been an apocalypse because we learned that the majority of the population of the world are dead at one point in the book. So for me, that classifies it as, at this point where we are, the amount of people that there are in the world who are also all going to die with no more people to come. That to me is kind of the definition of an apocalypse, because within 40 years there could be no people in the world.
David does join us. Welcome, David. A nice thing about post-apocalyptic stories is the chance to build a new, better society due to the breakdown of any control structures. I agree. That's the hope in those type of stories. The fear is lawlessness and people trying to take advantage of you, or in those situations as well.
I have one more thought before we maybe start getting into the book a little bit more, but as far as the differences between the two, and here's one commonality. I think at its core, both post-apocalyptic books and dystopian stories, they're a warning to us right now. Mm-hmm. And that's what ties them together. They're a warning. Each one of these books is showing us, be vigilant, be careful, because there are the world that we live in right now does not have to be a world 10, 20, 50 years from now. There are forces that could easily upend everything. And these books, as they may seem far-fetched to us living, our good, easy, privileged lives, but I think these books are a warning, and I think that is the connection. That's the thread tying them together.
Did you watch my video, Bart?
I'm sure I watched all your videos.
This is before we
So,
met,
yes.
so I don't know. Yeah, I said it was warning fiction as well. That is the link.
Warning, yeah.
Theme. Yeah.
Welcome, Jack. And we have an interesting comment here. There are post-apocalyptic stories that end well, as in a better society. I've never read one. I guess it depends what you define as a better society. When I was talking about A Last Babylon with atom bombs falling, instead of turning to lawlessness, some people were turning together to try to help each other. So does that mean, I'm not sure that's a better society, but it's a society that is regaining its civility.
I think there are some that are hopeful, but I don't know about better.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single book that has a kind of a positive ending where the society is better for its collapse.
I wonder, you know what? I don't read a lot of, some people call it cli-fi, climate fiction apocalypse.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's any that might end up in a better spot than we are at right now. I don't know.
There's a couple that are more hopeful. Ministry for the Future is one.
Yeah.
I guess it depends how much you like the society you live in, right? If you hate everybody, then maybe an apocalypse would be a good thing.
Yeah, if you're a misanthrope, you might be happy that society collapses, and
Yeah.
I think it's time to go to Mockingbird.
Let's do it.
Walter Tevis is a writer that some of you may never have heard of, but he's written things that you probably have heard of or that have been adapted. For example, The Man Who Fell to Earth would be his first science fiction novel, and there's been a movie with David Bowie and a TV series that came out, I don't know, maybe about 4 years ago. But there's also a couple of movies, The Hustler and The Color of Money, that have to deal with billiards. And there's also a novel about chess and a young woman called The Queen's Gambit, which was a very popular Netflix show. Those are all by the same author, a very accessible but well-written prose in my mind. And so we are taking a look at one of his last novels. Mockingbird was written in or published in 1980, and he died in 84, 85, I think. Or at least his last works were published in 84. And this one, does anyone want to sort of take a crack at a little bit of a summary or hook for it before we get into it? And we'll try to save spoilers for a little bit later on and warn you when we really get into them.
I did Chasm City, so it's not my turn.
It's Bart's turn. It's Bart's turn.
All right.
I don't know if I'm the right person for this one. I don't know if I'm ready, but yeah, just quickly. So in Mockingbird, we are, is it 400 years in the future? Something like that?
Roughly. Yeah.
Right, something like that, right? So we're in the far future. There are robots everywhere. Robots are part of the society. In fact, right up from the outset, we meet a robot who is in charge of just about everything. Very interesting robot. Maybe the most interesting part of this book for me actually was his trying to figure out his mind and his intentions. But this society has been slowly but surely collapsing. So the human society has collapsed around these robots, essentially. And the society is dying. These cities seem to be dying slowly. Empire State Building is featured prominently in the book, but it looks like it's in shambles also. And the other buildings have collapsed to the point where Empire State is the tallest building in the world. We meet humans who are controlled by these robots in a way, but it seems like they've caused it themselves. It wasn't like AI, kind of tricking humans. It's us doing it, kind of lending jobs out to robots, and the society slowly declined to a point where any intellectual, there is no intellect. No one's reading, for example. This is a big thing in the book. No one knows how to read anymore, or just about no one knows how to read. humans are not having babies. I think Sam mentioned a little bit about this earlier, that this society is going to totally collapse. So we are at the end of civilization as when this book starts, and we need. It's a book which the type that I like, that does not have too many characters, but we have 3 characters we are following in this story, and they're all fascinating, I think, for different reasons, and they all have interesting story arcs within this society that is slowly falling apart. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you guys want to help me out, because I wasn't really prepared to like do a good synopsis of this book as far as its themes.
I think it's pretty good. The part about illiteracy, that we handed all of our functions over to the robots to take control of our society, and it got to the point where we didn't feel like we needed to read anymore, and it wasn't encouraged anymore. That's an interesting part of this novel, I think. And maybe we should name the characters. I'm not. I think we've pronounced their names a little bit differently, but I usually say for the robot, Spoforth, or Robert Spoforth, is in a humanoid form as a black man without genitalia, which is something that is found out within the novel. Then we have, you might have to help me out here with
Paul Bentley.
Bentley, yes, Paul Bentley. And Paul Bentley is the protagonist of the novel. He's the person we're following, who happens to be a person who found some instructional material in terms of how to read, starting to read from very basic readers with some recordings, I think, that helped him. And then there is a female character that they're all set. This is set in New York primarily at the beginning, who hangs out at the zoo, and her name is Mary Lou. And those 3 characters have relationships with each other that eventually impact the society in some very interesting ways. I don't know, anyone else want to add to themes perhaps for this book?
Yeah, so one big part of the book is drug abuse, I guess you could call it, where pretty much I think everybody in the society uses drugs just all the time. But it's also twinned with them being kind of, this is part of the dystopian side of it, as they have been kind of taught these various mantras of how to behave, and they're kind of very regimented in their behavior, and it's very kind of inhumane in a way. It's kind of taken all emotion away, and it's completely centered around individuality and away from society building. I think that's a really big part of the book.
To the point where touch is something abhorrent to them.
Yeah.
And one of those sayings, I think, was something like, don't ask, relax.
Yeah.
Trying to give you the idea to not even question or to don't stress yourself. Just continue to take your pills and relax.
Keep calm and carry on.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that if you really want to get a good feel for a lot of these stories, and you're very familiar with dystopian literature, there are pieces of this book that I can pull out of Mockingbird that are found in the common dystopian classics. For example, we talked about illiteracy being a big theme in the story. We also have like some very similar plot I'm not going to call it plot conveniences. I'm going to call it like plot themes, I suppose, for Fahrenheit 451. Mm-hmm. We also have this society who has dulled themselves into this uncaring, kind of almost selfish me style vibe with, what is it? Quick sex and all the drugs and all that stuff is very Brave New World. And then we have, the government that sort of is running everything. We also have a lot of like glimmerings of we, although it's done in a similar way. It's also the opposite, because we is about, you can't say the word I, whereas this community, it's all about you. So it's all about the individual. But yet neither of them have privacy, right? Everything is seen and witnessed together. So I think that there's a lot of the classic dystopians that we've kind of pulled pieces from into Mockingbird. I even got some glimmerings of PKD myself from Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, in terms of like how androids are viewed in this particular story. They're almost human-like, but not quite. And they're kind of very regimented by their programming because, as we learn on page 1, Spofford wants to commit suicide and yet cannot. And that's kind of a big theme throughout the story as well. So it's kind of an unjust society for everyone.
And we even get the idea, and this would definitely be from Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the idea of what it means to be a conscious individual in control of your choices, with Spoforth being a very different robot from the rest of the robots in his series, due to an experiment that was conducted to convert some human, scanning human mind and implementing that in the construction of his mind. One of the things you mentioned there that I was thinking a little bit about too is you were talking about government control. It's a government, though, that's been gone for a long time, that the robots basically just keep enacting the rules that are in place. It's not like there is actually people implementing the government control. It's all robotic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the government has fallen apart, but there is still means of control, specifically by Spofford, who kind of manipulates that courtroom scene, for example.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he uses the rules to his own effect if he can, according to his programming.
Yeah, even he's quite hands off though, in a way, isn't he? Because he just kind of does everything just according to his own personal mission of finding out his memories so he can die. He's not really controlling anything. He's almost kind of just not controlling things. He's kind of letting things fall apart.
Are we doing spoilers, by the way?
Not quite yet. I don't think.
Talk about anything, or...
In a way, I think this is a book that kind of doesn't even really matter if you hear spoilers. I think it's a lot about the reading process, and I don't think there's like a huge plot or anything, or like a huge twist. It's kind of quite sedentary in a way as a book, but there are certain things that you could spoil.
Well, how about we'll look at User Unfriendly's comments here and chat about them, and then we can maybe go into an area where we'll say some light spoilers to start with, and then if we start to talk more towards the end of the novel, we'll make sure people know that too. So he says, I believe it's he. I can't remember who wrote this, but there's the thing. Modern, our society encodes most of our literature and books in either perishable material or in media that requires an infrastructure. So once again,
I think he finishes that quote in the next.
Modern that requires infrastructure to access, like DVDs need power and players and computers to read the material. All the books in the world are, in danger of being lost, and
in a sufficiently apocalyptic.
Yeah, there we go. So in other words, the knowledge that we have could be gone. I mean, a lot of people have argued that about everything converting to digital, that we are very much in danger of losing so much knowledge. Definitely the illiteracy of it did play a factor in the society. Society was definitely dumbed down, and society was drugged, but people without purpose becomes another apocalypse of its own, really, in terms of where they're at, not having children, no future that is there with no purpose. So we're going to go into some light spoilers, and start talking a little bit more about some of the things that happen in the novel too, and how they play in these themes.
I wanted to just, if I can, Richard, quickly mention something in response to what you just said. In Mockingbird, we have this society that has completely declined, dumbed down through drugs and just lack of any interest in just about anything. They kind of live these solitary lives. But there was an interesting study also that points to IQs in our society declining every year since 1975. I was born in 1974, so I'm like the last.
You're smarter than the rest of us, huh?
Oh, I got it.
Me and Richard were, but anyway, it's an interesting study. It doesn't come to any conclusions necessarily as to what is causing it. I think we can think of some things maybe causing it that we see in our world right now, with smartphones, for example. But it is something that, again, these books are a warning, and I think Mockingbird is definitely very powerful warning for us right now.
I found also interesting because of the declining population, I think they were down to, wasn't there like something, a part in the book where they talked about maybe 1 million people being left in the world?
I think it was 19 million.
19 million. And I had mentioned there's some interesting studies about how we might be peaking in population and then going into population decline as our world becomes more affluent, because with affluence, less children seem to be born. And we can talk about that if we want to, but also when there was one child per couple implemented in China and they wanted to change that, they found that people weren't wanting to accept the idea even of having any children, that they just wanted to try to have an affluent life for themselves. And so they actually created a problem where they had a society where people didn't want to have children, never mind try to have 2 or 3. And there's predictions, or if they go along the certain trend with their aging population now, they're thinking they may go from 1.25 billion down to 700-800 million by the end of this century, which is unbelievably alarming. But think of any culture, any country that has a birth rate less than, I think we have to have 2.1 or something like that to sustain our population. There's many affluent countries that do not have that birth rate.
Oh, it's all of Europe. US. I mean, South Korea is in horrible decline. They are in 30. South Korea is like they're done as an economy basically. And China, like you said, there's no going back. Also, these things are very difficult to restart. So it is interesting regarding the IQ. One more thing, and this is something totally adjacent to the book, but it's an interesting topic, I suppose. With the IQ, I think this has been disproven, but one of the reasons for the decline in the IQs, as it was proposed, was the fact that people who are highly educated and presumably more intelligent also are having fewer kids, and the folks with lower IQs. So there is that. I think that's been disproven, but I don't know. Interesting. So there are a lot of things happening when it comes to population decline and also overall IQ of societies.
I would be careful about the genetic part of that, but I would say that more educated parents are more likely to read to their children or afford a better education to their children, which would improve that. Yeah.
But genetics do play a role as well. I think there is that component. I mean,
we are all highly intelligent, us four, and we all have less than 2.1 kids. So we are part of the problem. I've got that right?
Yeah, I have 2.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
So it's our fault.
There is an example of Make Room by Harry Harrison. You can also think of John Brunner's Stand on Zanzibar. There's a lot of overpopulation novels in the late 60s and early 70s that, interestingly enough, it seems like we're going in the opposite direction potentially. And there's also genetic influences we think of the plastics in our society, et cetera, that can be affecting our hormones and our ability to even have children as well.
Well, yeah, I gotta love those microplastics.
Yeah, they're everywhere. They're all over us. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's really interesting because on this topic, and we probably shouldn't deep dive too much into it, but I think there's been a lot of like interesting social theory about it, and how the world is in many ways can be viewed like a giant organism in terms of homeostasis, which is a very scary word that we use in medicine a lot for trying to like equal out your body. So your body wants to stay the same. So for example, if you have really, really high acid in your body will produce a whole bunch of base to even it out, right? Or vice versa. It just like really wants to stay in this perfect little place. It's almost like the world could be viewed from that perspective in terms of we aren't going to get the kinds of projected overpopulation that those 1960s, 1970s authors we're seeing, because inevitably something was going to happen to decrease the population because the world couldn't sustain it. I think that's a really cool perspective, but I also I don't know. I don't want to go too deep into the weeds here. I'd like to get back to the book.
All right. Well, anyways, let's do that. We'll get back to the book here. We start with our protagonist, Paul Bentley, and he is hired to be a professor in the university in New York. And this is where Spofurth is. And he is basically, at least in our view of the United States, he is the person who's in charge, or the robot who's in charge. And so he's the dean of this university as well. And so he hires Paul Bentley, and he's very interested because he gets Paul Bentley to start to translate things for him into recordings. And so he starts with silent movies of all things, that Paul Bentley reads the cards into a recording for him. And Paul Bentley starts to get exposed to old society, old 20th century society, and then even to some newer movies. And of course, books are not around. There's not a lot of books around. They were kind of purged as well. And so eventually he does start to find some books. And this is where the novel begins to open up. We get to see this hopeless society that we're in starts to open because Paul is finding books and starting to scratch his head about some of the things that are in these movies.
This is really where I feel like the book Mockingbird becomes the truest definition of dystopia, because the impetus for change is always exposure to a new idea. And it always happens through either some kind of knowledge, like a book, or an exposure to a person who happens to think differently and shows you that you can, in fact, break the rules. And it's usually a woman who does that. Just saying, classic literature.
That's a good point. It is definitely similar in many ways, but I think there's still kind of no control now, like in the present where we're reading. There's just one person, if you like, the robot Spofurth, who is in control. So I don't know, it's very, very different in that way to many other dystopias, if it is a dystopia, because it's just one single person in control rather than a governing body or a society, or however you want to call it. So I remember you asking us when we were buddy reading, how is this different? I would say that is a big difference in terms of who is in control.
We have an interesting comment here about YouTube has largely replaced books as repositories for knowledge. Do you think that people go, I know the answer to this, people go first to YouTube before they would go to a library, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know if I'm wanting to fix something, that's the first thing I do, as I plug in whatever the device is and what's wrong with it.
But I think that's a benefit to YouTube, actually. That's an enhancement. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I needed to fix something in the plumbing. I don't know if I would have ever gone to a bookstore or a library where I would have had to call someone. now I just watched the video and then I did it myself. And I was proud and my wife was happy. So
I wonder with IKEA to see how something's put together versus try to understand their instructions, which would work better, right?
Well, I think it can be a benefit, but it's also depending on how it's used and what kinds of knowledge it becomes a repository for. Just like as we're experiencing with AI, if AI is getting all of its knowledge secretly from all of the YouTube videos where everyone says the best book ever is Gene Wolfe's Shadow of the Torturer, then that is going to become the definitive thing that people look up, right? And you probably don't want your medical advice from YouTube either, right? Well, and it's interesting because it's like, well, who's telling you this information and how are we getting it? And sometimes people are correct, like with how to fix their cars. They come up with cool ways to get around what a mechanic would do. But at the same time, you also get those people who are still convinced that the earth is flat. So you see that there is a problem.
Also, I think maybe plumbers and mechanics might complain because they're probably losing out on work that you might have,
I think they have lots of work.
They're doing pretty well. They're the ones who are doing really well right now. With the advent of AI, their jobs seem to be more secure than some of the, white collar jobs. So
let's say hello to some people here. There's starting to be more people joining us. Hello, Sephirus. It's nice to have you with us. Let's see here. Captain Finity has joined us. We have some of our European friends joining us, and we have Eternal Reading as well. Welcome, Eternal. Just subscribe to your channel, by the way. Looking forward to seeing some more of your videos there. And there's that movie, right? Idiocracy.
I couldn't get through it.
Yeah,
but it does seem true in some ways, uncomfortably so.
I think that's the truth about that movie. Why it's hard to get through is it's very uncomfortable.
I watched it. I had never seen it actually, and I watched it literally just a couple years ago, specifically for the medical part. And I have to say, it was very uncomfortably close to like what I foresee in the future. I was like, oh man, this is rough.
It is. And it was made 20 years ago or more, but it seems like we are progressing more in that way in terms of some of our entertainment that everybody.
Or if you haven't seen it, I have to send you that like 4-minute clip or whatever. It's incredible. It's awful, but it's incredible.
Captain Finity, by the way, is really explores time travel quite a bit. And so the grandfather paradox, he had to go to the library for a correct answer on grandfather paradox. Last time we actually had a live together, he gave me some information. He sent some information to me about a Star Trek episode and if that could work or not, or are we looking at different strands of reality and time that had to be there? So it was very, very interesting. Or just read Larry Niven. All right. Sometimes I get behind in comments. So I'm not sure exactly where they're, what they're referring to. So we're just talking about reading and starting to break into looking at new ideas. He also has routes throughout New York where he does things, where he goes to eat. There's robots who make food that continue to make food. Sometimes the system starts to break down and perhaps some ingredient is not being produced where the way it should be produced, or something's in the way of it and something falls to the side. Spoforth tries to repair things in New York or get robots that can repair things as he finds some things falling apart. And then we have a really very interesting scene where he goes regularly to the zoo and he's watching all the animals, and there's some children there. The only children we actually see in the
Wait,
book.
This isn't Spofford. This is Bentley.
Bentley, yes.
Bentley.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
Bentley had gone to restaurants, and then Bentley has gone to the zoo. And in the zoo, he finds these children interesting because there's some repetitiveness in what happens there. And he sees a woman who appears to be living in one of the habitats. Her name is Mary Lou. And that's where we start to get a human-to-human conversation going on. What was your reaction to Mary Lou and what she brought into the story?
Well, she brought a lot to the story. I think she subverts everything that we read up to this point. Because maybe one thing to point out also is there's some uncomfortable things in this book. When he goes to restaurants, quite often people will walk in pairs of threes and set themselves on fire as a way of ending their existence, right? So there's a lot of darkness, and no one even does anything about it. People just watch burn, and when the smell of the flesh gets uncomfortable, they'll leave the restaurant. It's very interesting how this society has totally just removed any emotion also from their lives through the use of drugs. But with this woman, he has like a real conversation, I think, for the first time that we could recognize as kind of human to human connection. And she starts him, his mind, leads him in a different direction. Now, already the books were doing that, I think, but it wasn't until meeting her, I think, that he really opens up. So I think this was huge. Also, there's some interesting biblical like vignettes thrown in there, which really don't go anywhere. That's my problem with the book. I definitely want to ask you some questions about a couple of things. But they were interesting too. Things that definitely make you think, things that you would recognize. So yeah, I think this is where it starts when they meet. They do fall in love, I think we could say also.
Well, like I said, I think it's interesting that it's always another person who's the impetus of change. And it wasn't just new ideas that he had to be exposed to. It also has to be the application of them. And we get the application of a couple of ideas that Mary Lou very much pioneers. For example, she gets sick because of some of the drugs, so she can't take them. So she is a clean mind, and she decides that what she's going to do is she's going to live at the zoo because that's where she likes to go. And she doesn't have anywhere else really to go, and nobody tells her she can't. And he didn't know that this was even something that was possible. So he gets to see somebody who's kind of living outside the rules, somebody who's not relying on the drugs all the time. And I think she even says in there, she confirms for him that the zoo itself is all robot animals. Like, we don't have any more actual animals. And
that's where the kids, I believe, Richard. That's where the
right.
kids.
That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so here we're going to start to go into more spoilers as we talk about it, but we're going to keep on talking about the novel. So just beware.
Yeah, my bad. I'm sorry.
And the interesting thing about her also,
we're going to go there,
because we get a little bit of her backstory, is she was not indoctrinated. I don't remember exactly what happened to her when she was a girl, but she was not as indoctrinated as most of the society. So we have Bentley, we have him who's kind of doing a reverse. He's got to, make realizations, break down his conditioning essentially, and return to the essence of what it is to be human. Whereas she kind of held on to a lot of it, and together they're a very interesting couple. So yeah, it was
I think another important part of her is, so she kind of left the schools. She disappeared, and she didn't get caught because those powers don't exist anymore. And I think an important part of her character is she has this father figure, right, who she kind of found, who is almost like a hermit kind of character. He's older, he's a lot older, and he remembers a lot more things about the past compared to a lot of the society, because he's kind of taken himself away from it. So he's given her a lot of ideas, or kind of just, I don't even think he does it purposefully. It's just the way he lives and the kind of passing comments he makes, and she thinks about them, and so she has a different kind of mindset about things, and she questions things a little bit more, and I think that's really important part of her personality and why she is important to the relationship, because she brings this completely different mindset compared to the rest of the population.
It's just like such an incredible comparison with the female character in We, and also the female character in 1984.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might almost call it a trope.
You might.
Yeah.
So she has a lot to offer him in terms of being that drug-free mind. Gives him the idea potentially that you don't have to take these drugs that are given to you.
Exactly.
And on the other side, he, with reading and these films that he's translating and the potential to look for books in a university, who would have thunk? They start to, he opens her mind to gaining knowledge through this acquisition of reading. Let's see here.
Yeah, so I would almost call their meeting like one of the biggest like turning points, or the beginning of his like big character growth.
Yeah.
In terms of the novel. And something that I liked about this book a lot more, and I'm going to have to go back and reread some of the classics like 1984 and Brave New World, but I like that he has more of a very obvious character growth throughout the entire story, where we can see he's going through different stages that we all probably go through in some extent throughout our lives, that I thought made him very relatable. We go through it in a different way, maybe things like that, but how we learn things, may not be in the correct order, that kind of stuff. I really liked that aspect of this story.
So we have this burgeoning romance. I can speak English sometimes. And all of a sudden, we have Spoforth talking about how they are breaking some rules, but it looks like he's going to sort of back away from it. And then the hammer comes down, and Paul Bentley is sent to jail. He has a trial, which is a very mock kind of trial in the robotic rule world, and is sent to jail, and discovers some more interesting aspects of a lost society in terms of potential with friendships within the population of the jail and the potential limitations of the robots who are in charge.
Yeah, it almost seemed like this sending him to jail was necessary for him as part of his growth, because he gets to meet so many people, and this becomes almost like a journey. He's got a quest. He wants to get back to Mary Lou, but he does meet a lot of interesting characters, not all of them human. There's also a bus, which was interesting. But at the prison, they seem like the prisoners, because they're together in this misery, kind of confined, they're a little bit more open to actually living lives. There's some great scene when they all like go to the beach, and there's some interesting things. It was well written also. I think that's one thing that we should say as we're describing kind of like what happens in this book step by step. The book is really well written. Tevis is a really readable author. I think most people would really enjoy reading this book because it's easy, but there's some beautiful sentences too, and some visually
I love the sentence
interesting.
where he talks about the Empire State Building, which features quite a bit in this book, and we haven't really touched on exactly why, as a gravestone for New York, and the way he expresses it is just beautiful.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. We might have a crying baby.
We can't hear you.
You're muted right now, Sam. So
yeah.
Never mind.
Okay.
Well, I agree with you, Bart. I think that this was an essential piece of his growth, because he has such a connection with Mary Lou, and she introduces him to all these new concepts. But unless they are separated in some way and he learns to stand on his own 2 feet, he kind of has nothing to add to the relationship, right? Other than teaching to read, he had to like learn how to do his own thing and mature himself and really discover what it is he wants. Which he kind of wavers a little bit in the story, which is good. I mean, that's I think essential also to rediscovering yourself, your purpose, and who you are, and is also maybe the secret of maybe marriages. And this is why your wife can't tell you what to do, because you have to be told by your friends in jail.
Well, and he desperately misses Mary Lou, but we start to discover that Spoforth has had ulterior motives in terms of getting him into jail so that he can form a relationship with Mary Lou, as much as a robot could with a woman. And we also discover that Mary Lou may not feel as strongly for Paul as he seems to feel for her, that this longing may not exactly be as strong for her.
Well, and I would also argue, and especially with you guys, since we've read the book and we are talking spoilers now, yes?
Yes.
That he felt a very strong connection to her because she was the first one who he had this connection with, who he could share something with. Whereas she has had many other connections, like with her father figure, Sam, and other people. And she does recognize Spofford, the robot who has taken Paul's place in a really weird situation, like they're playing house or something. But she does recognize that there's like this intellectual need that's already being met by other people, and doesn't really value Paul as much until later, because he's not the only connection she's ever had for this. And that's why I think it was so important that Paul have another connection with somebody else, not just the men at the jail or the bus, but we also have, what was her name? Was it Abigail or
Annabelle?
Gosh, I forgot. What was it?
Annabelle.
Annabelle. Sorry, man, that's not even close to Abigail.
It's close.
Yeah.
There are A's and
Well,
B's.
that was an interesting society also, because she lives in a society, kind of a religious group, that they seem to be kind of living outside the societal norms. They're still not having kids, interestingly, but that was an interesting, almost like a cultish kind of a feel to that group that he joins, and Bentley does fall in love with this woman who is her husband, I think, passed away or something. I don't remember exactly what had happened to him.
He was a triple suicide,
like most people.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a journey of growth also on Paul's part, and I think at the end of the book, since we're doing spoilers, when they meet again, I think they're both now, with the additional experiences that they've had, and since we're doing spoilers, Mary Lou is also pregnant when Paul goes to jail and Spofford the robot moves in with her. She's pregnant, so that's an interesting thing to talk about, because there was something in it that bothered me a little bit about that. And I'll ask you again, maybe, I think, Sam, maybe you answered it in the Voxer messages, but I do think I was a little bit confused by this robot living with her, playing house, like you said. Kind of, it seemed like he was caring for it. So I thought he is helping her maybe repopulate the world in some ways, although with, a single child and him being, unable to do anything about having more kids. I wasn't sure how, but then when she is in her 9th month, he proposes that she ends the pregnancy, or tells her to do it. And she kind of takes it very well. I was very confused about that. So I just wanted to bring that up, because there were some moments in this book that really, I didn't understand the motivations.
Well, so, and I could be reading into this, and please correct me, because I'm just thinking about this now as you're asking, Bart. But I thought it was really interesting, because I think that as it's coming, Spofford is very, at least depicted in this book, very human. He has lots of human needs and wants. He feels lonely. He wants to commit suicide. He has lots of selfish ideas and thoughts and things like that. And so I also think that this kind of reflects the idea of like, oh crap, this is about to happen, and now I'm going to have to stay with this kid because that's going to be the programming, and I must not have thought this all the way through. And at least for me, it kind of seems like an interesting reflection that's like a natural human emotion of, oh, this is actually going to get real. Just kidding. I don't want this. Kind of like parents, I would imagine, experience like, oh my gosh, now this thing is crying in front of me and I have to do this, which is something that I feel all the time now. So,
I think there's a little bit of that, but it is kind of justified in a way in the book. So basically all of the actions that Spofford takes with regards to Bentley and Mary Lou are all in order to try and regain memories that he's lost. So there's a part of him, all of these, his type of robots, which are the highest ones, Make 9, they're called, they're all kind of based upon one human who created them, the designer of them. And he implanted some of his personality within these robots, but they don't have the memories. But he knows that he is made from this person, and he's kind of basically trying to get his humanity, trying to find out some of the memories from the person that he is made from. And it's all basically in order to kill himself, because he's miserable. He wants to die, and he thinks that if he can get some of these memories, he'll learn how to die. And so he's trying to create normal life, some kind of normalcy in terms of bringing reading back, bringing relationships back, somebody having a baby. Basically, every time he realizes that that's not working, he starts to try and get rid of that. So as soon as he realized the reading thing wasn't working, he gets rid of Bentley. He's also done his job in impregnating Mary Lou, so now he can try and he'll fall in love with her and make a relationship, and then maybe see if this baby thing is going to bring anything back. And when he realizes it doesn't, it's not going to work, he's like, well, I don't want this baby to exist because I can't die until all humans are dead. So now that this human is going to come into this world, I've got 70, 80, 90 more years to live until I can die. So that's kind of the justification behind all of his actions.
So Spoforth is robots are programmed to serve humankind.
Humans. Yeah.
And that's their purpose, and that they're there to do that, and that they must continue to do that as long as there's humans there. And Spoforth, because of this special programming, and it was very interesting when they talked about the scientist whose mind was copied and put into them. It was kind of like a small-time guy in a lab that they just grabbed and did it with. It wasn't like anyone special, but then they edited out memories, and so that the robots had the capabilities of making decisions like humans had in terms of making decisions. It was a way to get an artificially intelligent robot, but try to minus the memories of the person. And Spoforth craved glimpses of being a person, and had these sort of dreams and glimpses of a woman in a red coat with a black collar. And so there's different things, and that drives him to cross purposes in terms of wanting to try to see if he can experience family, to tease out more of that. But yet, how can he continue humanity if that means his tortured existence is going to continue as well?
Exactly. He even tries to make Mary Lou look like that woman by making the exact same dress and trying to convince her to dye her hair and stuff. So it's all part of that, trying to
I think maybe some of it is quite subtle, but for the way I understood it was Spofford, ultimately, he is the one who's in charge, and he is the one who's pulling because we find out that he is the one who was in charge of the control of sterility, like drugs were added to the drugs that people are taking to make humans sterile, because he's been wanting to kill everybody, because he thinks the only way for him to die, because he cannot commit, he cannot kill himself. But he thinks he will be able to do it when there's no more humans for him to quote unquote protect. So that's why I was confused about him, like having the baby for 9 months. And then it was a little bit confusing as to his motivation, because his ultimate motivation was he wanted to,
and
get
his
rid
own
of humans.
And I think maybe at this point we should not reveal the ultimate end of the novel, like say the last 20 pages or so. But we really are discussing a lot of the themes that come throughout the novel, and you have the big pictures now of these characters.
I do want to say in general, I want to ask everybody about the ending, because I did find the ending interesting in terms of, do you find it hopeful, or do you think it's still a very dark ending? I'm interested in what you think.
I think it was a beautiful.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, what was that part?
I was saying I did not have a strong feeling either way. I thought it was an interesting ending, visually very affecting. I thought it was a good ending, but I wasn't sure if I'm meant to, and I didn't feel like, okay, now things are gonna be okay, or now things are. I wasn't sure, honestly, which way things are leaning. I don't know.
It's quite open-ended. It's very open-ended. You could probably read it either way, I think.
Yeah,
I think it was beautifully written. I wouldn't call it a satisfying ending for me. That I'm fine with the ambiguity of where we go from here. And I'm actually, have in my mind, I have a pretty good picture of where that things could go from there. But I found I wasn't sure. I sometimes use the term, I wasn't sure it was earned, the decisions that were made towards the end of that sequence.
One thing about this book, I'm sorry, go ahead, Whitney.
I was just going to say it felt rushed. I agree with that. Sorry, go ahead, Bart.
Yeah, I would say, just as we're like talking about big picture, maybe also if we like the book or how much we like the book, because I think we all like the book. I really like the reading experience of the book, but I was thinking about this book. There are a couple of things. One is I feel like it's, in some ways, it's less than the sum of its parts. He's got so many interesting parts there, but it's less than the sum. There are some books like Ishiguro can write books that do not have a whole lot in them, but there's a lot happening and it's much more. The book feels like it's much more than the sum of its parts. In this story, I have two issues. So one is this feeling that I have that it's somehow less. And I just reread, in the last 2 days, I read Brave New World, and I like Mockingbird more. I just read it over the last 2 days. But I think Brave New World just knows what it is and what it's saying. And in this book, I'm not sure. And I think my question for you, because I almost feel plagiarism is a problem, and I'm not suggesting any of that, but you mentioned this early on, Whitney. There is so much borrowed from so many books, that things you've mentioned, I mean, and the things you haven't mentioned also, because there are so many, obviously Fahrenheit 451, 461, having the burning, we have those scenes. He's borrowing so many scenes, like taken right out of these books. Tevis, we have a scene, of course, in Fahrenheit where the older woman burns herself. People are committing suicide. Everything you've mentioned already, 1984 also with the Society, Brave New World, I reread it. It's everything. I mean, this book is like Brave New World in so many ways.
Yes, it is.
Everything is just taken from it and just rewritten in a different world. And we have robots added, of course. So that's one difference. But there's so much just thrown without, I don't know if everything is sticking. Also, I mean, even things I was looking through the book again, and I found, because I remembered something, there is a scene when Bentley's being interrogated, and we have the scene that just taken out of Dune with the truth box. And, he puts his fingers in the truth. They call it truth hole. Tevis calls it. So there's just so many things, that are taken that, to me, I'm not sure. Maybe it's not a problem. And I'm asking a question. Do you think taking so many ideas and not really having any additional idea of your own, because books, every single thing we could talk about, it's taken out of a book that was previously written. Is that a problem? Or is it okay?
I have to say,
I love the reading experience.
Yeah. Well, when we finish this book, as you guys already know, for my final Voxer discussion of this, is I really felt interested in the ending because one, I wanted to know how I felt about this ending, because I felt like it was hopeful in terms of the general gist of humanity, but it also really spoke a lot towards what I thought the author, or Tevis, thought was the most important theme of the book, because he chose the climax to be about Spofford. And I won't say what it was, but the ending is about Spofford's goal and life and what happens with all of that. And that is what he chooses to be his climax or his ending. And so that in and of itself, kind of changes my view of the book. But when you're talking about all of the different things that this book kind of stole from, I think it's in some ways kind of an exciting thing for somebody who loves books to recognize all those pieces I had a little bit of fun. I hope you guys did with that, but it also does make it a little bit less memorable for me. So if this discussion, for example, happened in May or June, I might not remember all the little tiny details. And I suspect next year or the year after, it's going to be a book that I remember fondly, but I also don't remember any of the specifics because it wasn't the first, it wasn't the most emotional impact, things like that. Brave New World, for me, I had like a lot of things to say about the ending. Like, I haven't read that book since high school, and I can tell you about the scenes in that book and the ending, and I can tell you how I feel about it, and I still get really like upset about it. Okay. And I'm sad to say I don't think that's going to happen for me with this Tevis book, because I've kind of already experienced some of those things in the other classic stories. But I definitely want to make room for you guys to talk about some of those points. So
this was a reread for me. And one of the things that I discovered about Tevis, I like to look into authors when I'm reading a book or making a video about it. And one of the things I discovered about Tevis is that he himself was a bit of a tortured soul, that he had addiction problems. Ultimately, he actually died of cancer, from lung cancer, and he had been a huge smoker throughout his life. And so there's some people who thought that this novel really was detailing his struggle to sobriety and maintaining sobriety when we're talking about the drugs that are used here. And also just, I think that the struggle of Spoforth himself is a bit of a mental struggle that Tevis was going through too. So even though there's a mix of ingredients in making this cake, the mix had to do with him connecting on a personal level with those tropes or ideas and weaving it into this story. And because I was rereading it, then I was starting to be a little bit more sensitive and seeing some of that and how that was working out. And also, I just have to admit, I just found so many sentences very interesting and poetic in their own way as I was going through it as well. And I pulled a bunch of quotes out this time out of this book just to share with you, where I thought he was doing some beautiful writing.
Yeah, it's a tough one because no book exists in isolation, right? Everything has influences, but I guess they are a little bit more overt in this one. I would like to reread it because I feel like on your first read, these things really pop out. But I think there is a lot of subtlety within the book as well. I think the book has a lot to say, and maybe it uses similar methods, but maybe talking about slightly different issues in some parts of the book. But it might be a little bit kind of overly condensed with how many themes it explores in a way, potentially, because there are a lot of things that it wants to talk about.
And I think Bart has put out there that he raises some themes like the religious society, but he doesn't really take it to a place that he could have. Exactly. He kind of drops it, right, Bart?
Yeah, that society, the biblical references. It seems like I could imagine Tevis researching these dystopian classics, some of these books, and also some other themes, philosophical themes taken from the Bible, maybe, and giving us that images, right? Biblical images of Adam and Eve. There's a powerful scene at the zoo, but I'm not sure if there's if anything really, there's a lot of it. But I think you mentioned also, Sam, I think the mantras that they repeat so often in these books, and Richard said one of them, what was it? Relax. Don't
ask, relax, or something like that.
Don't ask, relax. There's so many of them also in Brave New World. So as I was rereading Brave New World, I was like, this is Mockingbird. This is like everything in Mockingbird is here. So I just wonder, even though I enjoyed Mockingbird ultimately more than Brave New World, I wonder, what I should think about this book, considering how many things seem to be borrowed from other stories. So I don't know, but I still think it's an excellent, excellent book. And in fact, maybe it's the book I would recommend if someone hasn't read any dystopian novels and you just want to read one and kind of get some interesting ideas and really kind of an overview of and a major warning also, which we've talked about, how these books are supposed to give you some sort of a pause and start to think about maybe your own life, even on each individually. We have agency. What are we doing? How much time are we just scrolling on like some TikTok? I don't, but so many people do. So this would be maybe the one I would actually recommend, even though 1984 I think is the best one, in my opinion, not even close.
Agree.
But
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Agree. You all know it's my favorite.
I want to reread both Brave New World and 1984 because it's been years.
1984 is my favorite.
Me too.
1984 is just perfect. It's perfect. It knows exactly what it is, and it says it powerfully, and it's emotionally gripping.
I think this book is like a love letter to those books.
Yeah.
In a way, it's kind of honoring them with its references to them, and almost kind of taking them to their conclusion in a way, because I feel like all of them, in a way, you're within the dystopia at its kind of height, and you're living through that, whereas this one takes it a little bit further, takes it almost to its conclusion, where ultimately we have what is, in my opinion, an apocalyptic ending that has come from these dystopians. So it kind of like shows you what might become of these societies that we've read in the other books.
Well, and there's a reference to an apocalyptic beginning of some sort of nuclear event from Denver that has poisoned the soil. And so they had a real struggle in terms of growing things as well. But we really don't get much more than that.
Well, I was going to say that I don't know that I would recommend Mockingbird at first for a new dystopian reader, because I think the emotional impact of the classics are a little bit stronger in terms of the ending. They just pack a punch. And from the ending, you can get what they're warning you against a lot easier, at least in some of the classics. From this ending, what kind of warning are you getting? And I kind of was thinking about that while you guys were talking. And I kind of wonder if the warning in this book is humanity's going to screw itself. Like, I kind of wonder if that's not what the book is saying. Like, I don't know. Tell me somebody else. Give me a better interpretation, please.
Well, again, I think there are so many different parts to it. So you go, Bart.
I was going to say, since we're not talking about exactly what happens at the end, but maybe hinting at it, I think there's a symbolic maybe image of humans, kind of taking agency away from the robots, right? And I think that's hopeful with what happens at the end of the book. And who knows, maybe 30,000 years later we have Dune. Maybe that's kind of what happens.
This makes sense now. I love it.
It's a prequel, another prequel.
Yeah,
it's a prequel of Dune. I love it.
I'm just going to go to one comment here. There's been some conversations going on in there, and that's great. I love that the commenters comment with each other. But this feeling for some books and movies, I'm glad I watched the movie, but I would never watch it again. Feeling that way. I definitely know that feeling for some movies as well, and some books. I wouldn't say that about Mockingbird, though. I did read it a second time. I could see if there was a reason. I could read it another time. Tevis is a very easy read. We were just chomping at the bits to get to the next parts that we had assigned each other for reading, because we wanted to find out what happened next and next. And so I wouldn't say that about Tevis's book or the horrific things that potentially happen in there. I don't think that they would stop you from re-experiencing it.
No.
Somebody else also mentioned the movie WALL-E over here in the comments. And I just have to say that does kind of feel like the society in this book is the WALL-E society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
if they don't have enough food to get fat.
If anyone's read Service Model, it's kind of, I feel like there's a lot similar in this as well, with kind of degrading society of basically robots that took over all of kind of any service, doing all the jobs for people, and ultimately things go very wrong. So it's kind of quite similar in a way, but very light-hearted in tone.
Yeah, same with Sea of Rust, which is behind Bart on his shelf up there.
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but yes.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. I like
want to read it.
Day Zero better, which was the prequel to it.
Yeah. Day Zero was better. It had more emotions for me wrapped up in it, for sure.
Yeah. I always call it Calvin and Hobbes meets the Robot Rebellion.
Yes, I agree.
There's one when you're talking about this book being repeating other people's ideas. I think we have an author in the more contemporary area that does exactly this kind of thing and likes to add humor. I think John Scalzi is so repetitive of so many things within science fiction and then adds his own twist and humor to it. Sometimes I like his stuff. I call it almost like a popcorn candy or popcorn read. But other times I just find it too much of that. And I didn't find this too much. It's not really humorous at all. But that made me think of John Scalzi.
Yeah. I have zero interest in reading John Scalzi, to be honest.
Me and Sam, we're always on the same page pretty much.
Yeah. After Red Shirts, I stopped.
I have to say I like John Scalzi's stuff, but it's because it's a great palate cleansing read for me. I can't go from like really high level theme book to high level theme book like over and over. I have to have what I call candy reads in between my books, something that I could just listen to on audio that I don't have to think too much. And for me, that's where that kind of read falls. So
the Bobbyverse guy is kind of in that area too for me.
I don't think he recycles as many ideas. He gets a lot more serious later in the books. But that being said, I really like that series. So sorry.
Dennis Taylor, right? Is that the name?
Yep, that's him. Yeah. But his is also very like much a candy read. Like it's something I'm excited about, but I'm not necessarily like remembering every single word. Or it's easy to like listen to that and go grocery shopping or do something else. Right? I don't have to pay 100% attention.
For me, it was just too many pop references, pop culture references. And I was wondering,
especially in the first book. Yeah.
I was wondering, 50 years from now, I'm reading some books that are 50 to 100 years old. Will people read Dennis Taylor or John Scalzi in 50 to 100 years? I don't know.
Well, Bart, you had a scene that you want to talk about.
I did. I wanted to. Well, I do have a thing I wanted to say, but the scene I'll have to think about. But this is, I think, in this book there is the best encapsulation of this fallen society, and it's also a beautiful sentence, I thought. So I'll just read it quickly. He will be alone in the world of old and tired people who have lost the gift for living. Have lost the gift for living, and I think this is the society. They've lost the gift for living. I thought this was there's a lot of that, good writing in this book. So but I don't remember what I wanted to talk about.
The people have basically turned themselves into robots in a way. They do the same thing every day, and they don't really have any emotions, feelings, wants, purpose. They just wake up, go to the burger place, take drugs, watch telly.
46 years later, it kind of feels like we're pushing ourselves, isolating ourselves into those kind of molds too.
I feel that in my personal life because I feel like all I do is go to work and then I sit at home and read. But I don't know. I think that the scenes that he had where they met people on the street and they just like randomly interacted with them, and that person was intermittently or almost about to say, you shouldn't be doing that, or what's happening here, or like trying to correct them. And then they would get corrected immediately. And then they would just walk away and take their drugs, was actually a really powerful scenes a couple of times. I really liked those interactions kind of
instead of
talking about.
Instead of confrontation, just take another, what were they called?
Suppers. Like,
Yeah.
like soporific.
Mm-hmm.
Or Soma in Brave New World. Same thing.
I've read them.
Did you do the audiobooks or
I did the
read?
audiobook for the second and the fourth one.
okay.
Yeah.
Would you agree that the narrator really captures that bombastic, self-confident style?
I'd say yeah. I mean, it's hard not to read Harry Harrison in a bombastic style.
Can you guys
read?
can you guys remember my one bugbear with this book?
Your what?
Yes. This is about the language and learning to read, right?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That you didn't think it was realistic that he could
was
self-teach.
Way too easy for him to learn to read.
Yeah.
Way too easy.
Well, not just that. Didn't I say? I mean, you were absolutely right, and I agree. But then he learned how to write also.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right. And
Read
he
and
actually,
journal
he
at some
learned how
point.
to write without anything, just like he knew all of a sudden. So that
And
was a little
actually-
strange.
and everyone had a problem with the bus situation.
The bus
I
was
wanna-
more like in tune and telepathic also, which was annoying.
The telepathic.
Yeah. The
Machines
telepathy
are
for a
telepathic.
bus
Mhm.
kind of bothered.
Right.
both of
Right.
us.
So here's a quote. He said that reading was easy because letters made sounds that were always the same.
Mm.
So
I
I'm
remember you
assuming
said
the justification for this is that it's because it's 350, 400 years in the future that the language has gotten simplified and that it has become phonetic. Because if
You're
you
being
know anything
generous.
about English, then
Oh, maybe we
Excuse-
wouldn't be able to understand them.
yeah, or like he would have questions about like, why do I say it like this, but it's written like this, because that doesn't match.
By the way, I did skip over this, but I've heard the same thing or read the same thing that Searchlight Pictures had been developing this. I think it is a bit of old news. There was I don't know this director. Her name is Alma Harrell, was signed on to direct it. I'm not aware that it actually made it past
It didn't.
development stage.
It came out in 2022, and we haven't heard anything about it since. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You mean the news came out in 2022, not the movie?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, the movie was never made, to my
Okay.
understanding.
I think
Captain
you-
Infinity, that
The
is
right person
perfect.
could do some good things with it, though, I think.
Huh?
I think the right person could make an interesting movie out of this.
I don't know. I think it's a bit all over the place as a movie, unless they made some changes and maybe tightened some things up. I think it reads better. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe a series. I would say maybe a series with all these locations and the quest and him coming back and I think I could see it more like Silo. Like Apple TV has done so many great adaptations.
Yeah.
I would be interested in seeing what they could do with it. You know, concentrate on maybe on one of the themes, and that would be great.
I hate to say it, but I think it would end up being something more along the lines of what Apple TV did with Foundation, which, hot take, I liked the series. Okay, I liked it. I liked the addition of that, but I think they would end up adding something to it because I think it would be difficult to watch otherwise.
I love Captain Infinity's comment, by the way.
Where is it here? The last one?
Yeah.
All right.
Nope.
No, not that
Letters?
one.
Oh, sorry. Way down here.
Fish is pronounced fish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get this comment personally.
GH,
Yeah.
like from laugh,
Oh,
comes from laugh, so that's an f. The O, like from women, fi, and ti, like nation, fish.
now I get it. Thank
That's a
you for
great
explaining
example.
it to me.
Fish is pronounced fish.
And right before this, I think a person perhaps had started listening a little bit later here, but generally about government, post-apocalypse, world ending. And so, yeah, we talked a little bit on that line as well, and control. Yeah. All right. You know what? I think we're there. Hey, should we announce what we're going to be reading again or next?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's exciting news. I
You know
think
what? I
Sam
did grab
should.
it. I think I
Sam,
can.
can you hold it up? Do you have yours available?
It's right here.
We'll do it at the same time. There we go. Which cover do you like the best of these two?
I mean, no contest.
I like Sam's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that one too, Richard.
Yep.
Guys, I need to prepare you a little
altogether.
bit for this book
Okay, you have to prepare us. Why?
because it is extremely different from the rest of the books in the culture. Extremely different.
Like in terms of style, or in terms of themes, or in terms of what?
So, all of the other books so far, very much space opera, right?
Mhm.
Pure space opera. But the main kind of theme of the culture is them kind of messing in other people's affairs, right? So they go to less advanced societies and meddle with them, trying to either, make things happen the way they want to for their own purpose, maybe for them to join the culture or for whatever, maybe for what they think is the right thing to do from their moral high ground. Well, this is very much based in one of those places, and it is extremely subtle, their involvement, extremely subtle. This book basically reads like a fantasy book. It's kind of like a...
So it's an inversion?
Exactly. It's like yeah, it's pretty much kind of like medieval style fantasy, kings and princes and that kind of stuff.
Well, you can look
Well, I think
forward
this
to a
is the
very interesting debrief on that one.
Yeah, and I think this is the exciting thing about reading the culture. I think, and this one clearly sounds like it's more of a departure from the other 9, but I have found quite a bit of difference between the books anyway. Sometimes in tone,
Sure.
sometimes in structure. Like with use of weapons, which we had a great fun reading and discussing with the alternating timelines kind of as you reading it. So I think Ian M. Banks was doing so much with these books that I'm not surprised that he threw this curveball into the mix as well. Yeah.
I just don't want you to open it and be like, is this the right book? This is
Did Amazon mix up which one they were printing?
exactly, yeah. This is a fantasy book. What's going
You
on?
guys, I'm missing all of the pages.
Yeah.
You want to tell people what that reference is about?
Yeah, I don't even remember which book it was. We were
Chasm
reading.
City.
It was
It was Chasm City. It was Chasm City. I read the ending and I was really mad about it because it turns out I was missing a huge chunk of the ending. There were no pages in the book. That sucked. But
Well, I had all the pages and I was still mad about it.
There's an episode way back about this one too, so you can find that if you're interested. All right. Any last thoughts or anything that you'd like to promote on your channel?
My channel is inactive. I have not had time to do anything.
I'm really happy you joined us for this read, though.
Yeah, well, so school finishes term in like a week and a half. I've got a couple of essays and an exam, so I should be able to get back to making videos soon. I don't know what I'm going to do, but hopefully I'll have more time.
Bart just made a really interesting one that came out today, I think.
yeah, I was going to say, I watched it already and
Yeah,
commented.
me too.
Mhm.
Thank you guys. Yeah, I was going to make it a little bit longer, but I just did not have the time with work to kind of dive into a little bit deeper into some of these genres and talk more. So it ended up being a shorter video than I planned. But yeah, I'm happy with it. It was interesting, and it actually comes from a real place of me speaking to someone and them saying, I don't like science fiction. And then I started talking about how many different types of science fiction there are. Well, which one? Well, did you read this? Or no, that's science fiction. No, well, no, I didn't know. Well, it is. And I just read a romance also that was recommended by Joanna, and I loved it. The romance was great. So even sci-fi romance. So with all those experiences, I have to kind of make a video that just throws all these different genres quickly. Maybe this one was a little too short, maybe too quick. But yeah, thank you for watching the video. I had fun shooting it. And this is what I love about science fiction, and I think it does make it unique. How many different approaches one could take to writing or reading SF.
Right.
And there's lots of great book recommendations within each of those as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. And one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I finished shooting the video, I realized I missed several, and a big one being like alternate timelines, like Men in a High Castle, like these types of books. So there's so many more that I missed out.
And parallel worlds. And I mean, I could go on. Yes, there's crazy amounts. So I mean, you don't want an unending video either. So
No.
Yeah, but
it's open-ended for sure.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good. I like
How
your
about you,
editing
Whitney?
too. Sorry, I just have to say I liked your editing too. You picked some good pictures. I liked it.
There's some good music in there too that kind of matched it as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did
Yeah.
you did some great editing. Yes.
Thank you. Sometimes with editing, I can hide my speech impediments.
I wish I could.
That is why I edit my videos also.
That's why nobody watches mine, because I don't edit them out.
Oh, that's not true.
So I was supposed to come out with a video yesterday, and I have it all edited and all finished and all up on YouTube, and it's all ready. And I realized I don't have a thumbnail. And instead of doing the thumbnail, I went to sleep on the couch.
Okay.
So now after this, I have to panic a thumbnail and put it out. It's probably going to be like not a great thumbnail, but I need to come up with something.
What's the
YouTube
about?
question then? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay, wait. So we have a YouTube question, and he said, "What's it going to be about?" Should we?
Yeah. Let's go to Bart first.
Okay. So this video is the one that I've been telling you guys about for forever. It is the first of 3, and I call it the Woogos.
Yay!
The Hugos according to Whitney. And I'm doing it's the 2000s to the 2020s. So I literally did it up until 2026 this year.
Oh.
And I have candidates for each year, and then I go through who I think should have won. Although, I mean, there's the caveat that I'm never going to get to read every book in every year. Like it's never going to happen. So there's always going to be a place for change. But I decided I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm still going to make them. So
if anyone can do that, it's you, Whitney.
Well, I hope that's a compliment. Thanks, Sam.
Of course it is.
So
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, I might need you guys on my thumbnail help because I'm in trouble.
Well, we can talk after we're done here. My question though was, some people have said in sort of those advice kind of videos that you should make your thumbnail before you make your video. Do any of you do that or have done that?
I have done it. I have done it.
Okay.
And sometimes I think it does help if you're like really struggling to come up with ideas. You're like, this thumbnail would be really cool and I could make it like this. And I've done some where I make 5 or 6 thumbnails in a day, and then I have my plan for the next 5 or 6 videos. But I inevitably always come up with another idea, and then I'm like, what do I put on the thumbnail? Like
I think Richard, I think the key with thumbnails, because they're so important, I think the key is for them not to be an afterthought. So this is the advice, because I've heard this, maybe even the same video, that make your thumbnail. I think that thumbnails are important. I think that's the key. Do not make it an afterthought. Finish the video and then quickly just like take a screenshot of and post it, because I think that they're the key to getting those random clicks. So.
Actually,
I am the wrong person to ask. I don't play the YouTube game. I just make a video, take a picture of myself with some books, upload it, and that's why nobody watches my videos. So there you go. But by the way, dear viewers, I'm 20 away from 2,000 subscribers. So just give me a pity subscribe.
Let's get Sam to 2,000.
Then I can retire, and it'll be good.
Don't retire. Nope. Give him 19. For these videos here, actually, I do make them in advance and show them to you in our feed here, or in our
talks.
Yeah. And so this is one example where I do make some in advance. And the nice thing is they can give me some advice and tell me which ones they like as well.
Well, you're very, very good with your thumbnails, Richard. They're very artistic, almost always thoughtful and interesting visually. So you don't need help.
Absolutely.
I think I need a question on a lot of them. I think that a lot of people put questions on that drive people to want to see something.
Yeah.
And so that's one area I think I could improve on or try.
I just in terms of like thumbnails and perfect titles and perfect thumbnails, I put out a video a while ago, like just a couple of videos ago, on what to read after Project Hail Mary, and it did very well because the movie's coming out and it did really, really well. And I also have like a little series of what to read after this book. Okay. And my friend Rachel from Shades of Orange came out with that exact same video. It's different book recommendations. Okay. So it's not the same video, but she had a superior title and almost the exact same thumbnail. And she got literally 20 times the views on this video. I felt like, man, I should try harder.
So you think the question was the difference?
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was. Mm-hmm.
Only 19 to go,
look at
Sam.
that! Yes,
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
This
All
is
right,
sometimes
guys,
on purpose.
I have
just so you know.
I have an idea. I have an idea. Since I have nothing going on in my life, let's stay on live until we get Sam to 2,000.
It's a telethon.
Let's not.
I'm kidding. I
tired.
actually have a lot going on.
All right,
Busy Saturday.
and I'm going to be recording again tomorrow with a special guest that you all might
Tell us
know.
about
Whoa, with Whitney. I won't say why. I'll tell you guys afterwards. But you'll understand the reasoning here. So that's a teaser. That's the question. Or a teaser. We'll see if that works.
We have secrets.
Yeah. 18 now to go.
Yeah.
You guys are the best. I love you.
I'm telling you, we could do this. It's only 18.
Boy, I'm gonna have to rename this something. Subscribe to Sam. Or something like that for people to watch later on.
Oh, 17 now. Look at that.
Fish.
Well,
fish for the win.
Oh man.
So I think
Wow.
it's
It's
16 now.
going. This is impressive. Look at that.
I should beg
Sam,
more.
what kind of a video will you give us if you get to 2,000?
Yeah, give us something good.
Wait, maybe everybody's subscribing.
Oh, sorry, I put you on the spot. Sorry.
Maybe everybody's subscribing because Sam said you're gonna quit
Give us all of your
when
pet
you get to
peeves about
2,000.
Yeah, I could make an unpopular opinions video and then get below 2,000 again.
Oh,
or maybe you gain more than you lose.
yeah.
I
Sometimes
think those videos tend to do well. Actually, you've done one of those already, Sam.
I did. I got a lot of hate, but I also got a lot of subscriptions. So,
There you go.
Oh, this might be the final comment. I like it. Thank
I'm
you
gonna
to
remember
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. All right. Thank you all. And stay tuned to each of our channels and make sure Sam gets to 2,000. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.